Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Run Social. Today, we are going to be discussing, myself and Matt, the new changes with the iOS 14, which have completely and utterly taken over every piece of news channel within the digital marketing marketplace, along with apps, websites, basically everything. So let's kick into the episode. Hello, and welcome to Let's Run Social with myself, Nick Boddington, and Matt Rubus.
Hello.
iOS 14. So if any listeners to this, and we've got like 500 downloads now, Matt, as of yesterday. So people are actually listening to this, which is pretty crazy considering all we do is sit on it for 25 minutes.
I know. I find it really surreal that like people actually have my voice in their ears, and I feel slightly sorry for them, especially when I listen to some of it back and I'm like, oh no,
yeah.
I definitely still sound Bristolian.
I know. So I know you don't like. My mum said the other day when she saw us on YouTube, she was like, "Oh, such a good-looking lad. Oh, he speaks very well." So,
oh, really? That's interesting. Oh, you're making me blush now.
And James, when he listens to the podcasts, he says that you sound very articulate. He's never mentioned anything positive about me, so maybe I need to pull my socks up.
No, you're fine as you are.
Or maybe he just couldn't give me any compliments.
That's just yours and James banter, though, isn't it?
I think so.
What you're very good at, though, is kind of like leading the conversation. So
okay, here we go.
Let's go.
Right. So for anyone listening to this who goes iOS 14, I wonder what this one's going to be about. Panic. If this is the first you've heard of it, you are probably going to now stop your car and go, oh shit, and Google it and go, what the hell is going on? So I do apologize for that slight stomach. When you suddenly get a bit of anxiety in your stomach and it feels like it's in your throat. Basically, what is happening since iOS 14 is that Apple, this was going to be launched in September. It's now going to be in the next coming months, I think, by what's the rollout, like March, is it? Something like that?
Yeah, they've kind of been saying like Q1, isn't it?
Basically, what is happening is that when anyone buys a new Apple device or updates onto iOS 14, every single app they go into on their phone will come up with a little pop-up to say, do you allow tracking of this app for your with your personal information, essentially? Yes or no, opt in or opt out. The problem here, folks, is that whether you go onto Facebook, TikTok, or anyone else, that same question is asked. The problem there is the fact that anyone who opts out means that none of the information of their browsing and their tracking is being sent back to the Facebook pixel, which means it makes it harder for us to advertise. So the whole digital marketing space has gone into an absolute frenzy. Facebook have literally, I'm basically saying that Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg have probably had very, very heated conversations over what started as a polite dinner in some expensive restaurant in Silicon Valley, and probably ended with Mark Zuckerberg walking out going, I can't believe you're fucking doing this, is probably how it went. They have basically threatened that if Facebook don't follow the policies, then Facebook will be taken off the App Store, which would be absolutely catastrophic to their business. So that can't happen. So now this conversation is about what is going to be happening going forward to help advertisers like ourselves and business owners grow their businesses online. Matt and I have been on a webinar with Facebook this morning for an hour to go through a presentation of what they're sort of doing. And it's not as bad as we thought, is it? Really? I came out of it quite optimistic. Facebook is obviously changing things to make this as little negativity as possible.
I don't know if I'm like a bit deluded or if I'm just not kind of flapping about this and I should be flapping about it more, because I just think that it's not like, I know that there's going to be impact, like absolutely there's going to be an impact, but it's like our role, isn't it, within what we do to kind of like, we move with the changes. And it's not like they're saying they're closing down Facebook Ads Manager. So we're still going to be able to get results, and people are still going to be able to advertise. It's just going to look a little bit different. And absolutely, there will be this window of sheer like, what the fuck is going on? and like results are going to kind of look very different and things like that. But I'm very much like, it will be fine. Like, we will have to adjust in some way. We don't really know how yet. Like, we don't know what we don't know, but it'd be all right.
Well, so interesting. I've been back to back with calls today, like literally one after each other with clients. Only one client has known about it. I'm not at this moment in time pulling that into a meeting unless I need to, because all it's going to do is worry a client. And the problem is that client's going to answer a load of questions. They won't understand the answers, and they may not see anything happening to their results for another 8 months, 12 months, if anything, because at the moment it's all speculative. So should we start with, so the listeners understand where we're sort of going, because they're probably sitting there thinking, still not really understanding what this is basically doing. But basically, anyone who has iOS14 has the option of opting out of tracking. If they opt out of tracking, it means that we don't, in Ads Manager, we're not able to run people's ads as effectively as we did. So that tracking means that Facebook can follow what you're doing within Safari on your Apple phone. So you're on your phone, you go into Safari and you start browsing and doing everything you want to do, shopping and stuff like that. Facebook is following all that happening because Facebook has got a pixel installed on someone's website, and all that information is being sent back to Facebook to allow Matt and I and our team to go, oh, someone wants to sell jewelry. Let's choose women who are over the age of 35 and have purchased competitor jewelry, blah, blah. We've used the interests and the age groups and the demographics that come from that tracking information to make our clients' lives better and help their businesses grow. 44% of people people on Facebook use Apple. So worst case scenario, we've just lost 44% of people that we can advertise to. That was how it all kind of started. But not everyone is going to say no. I'm kind of optimistic in the way, or praying in the way, that when anyone on this planet goes onto Google and goes onto any website, they have a thing that comes up on the bottom banner to say, accept our cookies. And all anyone does is go, accept. So it could be that we fall into that. People just press allow, in which case, if that happens, nothing changes and no one has to worry. But worst case scenario, 40% of people could say no.
So the way that would look then, sort of like visually to somebody, when they download iOS 14, they would go into an app, and then there would be a pop-up, right, to say opt in or opt out of receiving ads
before continuing with your app.
Yeah,
whether it's Facebook, TikTok, but it's any app. So obviously, Matt, you've got a lot more experience on the app side of our clients, is that any single app, whether it's a game app, and this also, how this will affect the app world is really the most harming, because one of the reasons that Facebook gets and other search engines get the information they want is because when you go, oh, look, download this app for free of some little motorbike game, the reason it's free is because they're tracking everything you're doing online on mobile, and that's being sold back to the likes of Experian as a British company and American companies of the same ilk, and then selling that information to Facebook. So all these, it's not just Facebook following, all this different data is coming from all these different places, and Apple's basically going, no, we're going to protect our users, and we're going to give them permission to say whether they want to be tracked or not. That's what this all stems to. The problem is that Apple have now not consulted with any of the large Silicon Valley, Googles, Facebooks, Twitters, anyone, and just said, we're now doing it. It's essentially like a GDPR, Apple's own GDPR. And I don't care what you think, this is what's happening. Whereas there are people out there, Matt, aren't there, who think that basically, which is great for us if it does happen, Apple are going to look at their own advertising channel to their own users because they want to take control of about £20 billion worth of revenue.
There is all of that speculation out there right now, and I guess we're not really going to know whether or not that is the case. But
great if it is.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Well, we just kind of we'll pick it up and run with it, won't we?
But, we'll just have another ad platform to go on.
Yeah. I just think that it is a bit off that they haven't had those conversations, because this has created like havoc across the whole board. So the businesses and their clients that we look after, us as an agency, we're having all of these internal meetings and webinars and all of this extra work because of this. Is it for the greater good and for the people, or is it for the profits of Apple? And that's the thing that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
So apparently Apple, if you go into the App Store, they're quite happy to use their own algorithms to track what apps you'll be interested in. So it's one for them and
one rule for one,
whatever that's saying. So I'm crap with my sayings. Well done.
No, I'm usually really bad at them as well. Although I kind of just end it with, that one.
Yeah, exactly. I've sat in meetings with James and he's just literally just gone, I hope they also can't speak English. Because what are you talking about?
This is why we have to bring somebody else in to kind of bridge that gap a bit more between you and clients.
Yeah, exactly. Where's Liv? So that's basically what's going on. So what I don't want to do in this podcast is go too in depth. Yeah. Because we don't actually, of these 500 people that are listening to this podcast and 2 million in a year's time, obviously, we don't even know the background of these people. I guess they're into Facebook ads because our podcast is called Facebook ads. But I don't want to go too in depth because I just think that it can get I wanted to keep this quite layman's terms.
Yeah, absolutely.
What Facebook... Go on. No, you go.
You go.
Facebook is... one of the things that is quite exciting, though, is because Facebook is like, well, we're not going to lose £10 billion worth of revenue due to this. Facebook are already saying, well, still information is coming in. So even if someone opts out, there is still some information coming in. And only yesterday, Facebook basically said, you can still have one event to optimize. So even if so it's not the end of the world. Plus, Facebook are looking at how they're going to use the data coming in, change Ads Manager around a bit, and to help the greater good and carry on advertising. It's not the end of advertising. I mean, if you wanted to, you could literally go into Ads Manager and go exclude Apple users, and then carry on advertising to the remaining 60% of people on the platform. Mm-hmm. You could do that if you wanted to. So it's not the end of the world. I think where I think for agencies who deal with really big clients or big businesses out there who are advertising, they're actually going to get their fingers burned a little bit more than the smaller businesses and the SMEs, because you can only have one domain. And you can only have 8 events on one domain. That's starting to go a little bit deep.
I thought, though, it would be worth just sharing that with those that are listening, like a couple of action points in terms of preparation. And we don't know exactly where this is going to go yet. But and I think this is just more of a prompt for people to delve a bit deeper, to look at actually what they need to do. But the overarching message is one domain name can have 8 pixel events. So
what's a pixel event to the audience? If we use e-commerce, probably the easiest one, isn't it?
Yes, like view content, add to cart, initiate checkout, all of those different pixel events that you may be using at the moment, you can have only up to 8 per domain. So people, like Nick's just said, the big companies that have multiple agencies. So actually in the old agency that I worked at, we had a client that was a global client, and they had multiple agencies around the world all feeding into one website, using way more than 8 pixel events. So that's going to be a big one for them to have to adjust. If you're a smaller business and you've just got your one website, an e-commerce website, say, with those pixel events that I've just mentioned, it's unlikely that you're going to need to worry about using more than 8. But what you will need to do,
you don't even get 8 as standard.
Yeah, exactly. But what you will need to do is prioritize the events that you want to use. And like I said, that's going a bit too deep. So just make sure you look that up. So you're looking at your pixel events. And the other big one that you can work on right now is making sure that you verify your domain name within your Facebook Ads Business Manager. So make sure that you go and check that out. There is a bit more that's being that's coming in around the number of campaigns and ad sets and things that you can have, not across the board, but specifically for app install campaigns. So if you are an app, if you're advertising for apps, then that's something else that you'll need to absolutely get on your radar and look
That's
into.
just for apps, isn't it? The app one. So what can usually happen is that we advise clients to do this. So if we've got a client who's starting to spend some decent money, we'll always say try and have 2 ads managers. You can have up to 5 or 10 or 20. It's usually depending on your spend and how long you've been on the platform, Facebook platform, and how trustworthy you are. But when you first start, you only get 1 ad account, and then once you spend some money and stuff, it'll open that up to 5. But is that, Matt, just for apps that can only carry on with 1? Can normal companies have will that carry on as normal?
I'm not so sure about the ad accounts, but more specifically the ad sets within the campaign. I think that's being capped at 5, and then the remaining ones will be switched off. So it's just looking to kind of bring all of that down.
Okay. So part of the different events. So you've got 8 events, and this is one thing I just wanted to check with you, Matt. So, how would you? So basically, what Facebook is doing, you can have 8 events for people. So Ad Manager is going to change across the board. We now can only move forward and get used to the new way of life of you have 8 events. If someone is on iOS, Apple is allowing us to still track 1 event. And let's say it's e-commerce, we make the decision to make add to cart or purchase that main event that we want to track, probably purchase.
Is that for people that opt out when they get that pop up and they say no, we can still do the 1 track?
Yeah. So really, when you're optimizing for purchase, especially for e-com or lead generation, you're not really going to see Facebook's algorithm is still going to either pick the 1 event from people who have opted out and normal events for everyone else. I don't think we're going to see huge amounts of differences. And I think because it's like 12 months until it leads, and the reason why, just for the audience sake, the reason why we're saying, it's going to be in 12 months time, even though it's implementing in the next coming weeks, by the time looking over the last, I think I looked at a chart yesterday, it's actually in our document that we're going to go over it with the team. If you look at the last, since iOS 10, every time they implement a new update, it's on average taking 12 months before everyone on iOS is now up to scratch with the new update. And then they bring out iOS 11. It takes another 12 months before everyone's on iOS 11. So even though they bring out 14 now or very soon, it'll take another 12 months before everyone's using it. So because we're going to see very slow decreases in the data, but at the same time, Facebook is working very, very quickly to make things better again, I think it'll even itself out. And I think everyone's worrying a bit too much about it. Because people who come onto Facebook advertising in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, aren't going to know any different. No. If you set up an agency up in 12 months' time doing Facebook ads and you've learned about Facebook ads, you're not going to know any different. We had things that we used to love 2 years ago, which we can't do anymore.
Exactly. That's why I'm quite chilled with it. And I think the long-term impact of this, in a minute, it's just going to be like didn't even realize anything happened.
Remember, we'll have new members of staff that were going, I wish I could do that. Matt, remember back in the day when we could do whatever we wanted to with the optimization? They'd be like, really? You could do all of that?
Yeah, exactly. That's going to happen. But like the conversations that we're having about the amazing results that we're getting for clients, that's still going to be happening, because I don't think that's going to suffer. We just have to change. And I think this is actually where the biggest impact comes, and it will vary depending on the type of businesses that you're advertising for, is that it's the type of, is the change in the way that you work. So for us, it's as an agency, it might be that you're the business owner managing your ads. But for us as an agency, an example would be, and it does kind of make sense to me now, in that, you know how we look at the full funnel. So we'll look at, and this is more like your bag in terms of e-com, where it'd be like a landing page view to a view content to a add to cart, and we have all of those columns in our ads manager. And a big part of the success of our Facebook ads comes down to where the what's the word? The bottlenecks are in the funnel.
Bottlenecks,
So you will lose that now as part of this. You won't be able to pull that into your ads manager and see that, but it's still going to be crucial in the way that we optimize our ads.
What are you saying from me to be able to see what number of link clicks, landing pages going into an ad to cart? We'll still see some of that. We'll still see those in our columns though, won't we? But it'll just be skew if, because 40% of people might not show any tracking history.
Yeah.
So what it means, I can't do the accurate calculations as much, can I? That's the problem. Or we go, okay, these are the calculations, but 40% might be a bit skew if.
Or this is only going to look weird for like a few months, and then it's going to be actually as normal because you're still using the same maths. It's just, and you're still going to have that pixel trigger for those that say yes, just not just on a lower audience level because people have opted out.
Yeah, I agree. But Facebook have got this. This is the most intelligent computer on the planet, with some of the most intelligent people controlling on this planet. They will look for any single piece of information they can to get the results they need to for the advertisers. They will. I mean, at the moment you can see, even when we have those three ladies giving the presentation this morning, you can see they're just a bit like, this is like, as Matty C said when he texted through on our company group this morning, because we made everyone watch the webinar, is that he was like, wow, it's basically fisticuffs in Silicon Valley, isn't it? It's essentially it. Tim Cook's literally driving his Aston Martin through Silicon Valley to the Apple offices, and people are just driving past him, swearing and giving him the finger and the wank sign, aren't they?
Pretty much. But I think that actually that would be an interesting one. Now I'm thinking about that in more depth around the tracking, in that because for those that say no, you're still going to get your purchase event trigger. For those that say yes, you're going to get triggers all across the funnel. So therefore, there's going to be that benchmark change in the difference between initiate checkout and purchase, because you're probably going to get way more
purchases in initiate checkouts.
Yeah. So that's something that we'll have to look at. And I think that was the kind of like point that I wanted to make as well around the other kind of key thing that's going to impact this, but only on the short term, is that when we look at Ads Manager and we're reading all of the data, it is over by default a 28-day window, and that's going to be reduced to 7 as a result of this. So therefore, it may look like the numbers are worse because there's only a lesser amount of time for results to happen, but actually outside of the 7 days, that activity is still happening. It's just not being tracked. So it may be that there's a drop in results, but in terms of what we see in Facebook, but actually those results.
See, this is the bit I don't like most out of the whole thing, this attribution window, because it's been quite good. Like I love the funnel strategy of advertise your product through AdWords, get a warm lead, bring that warm prospect to your website. Then that prospect thinks, I'll go away again. And then we can track them on Facebook. And we have 28 days. If that person even goes back to Google again, or goes back to anywhere else and decides, oh yeah, actually I need to go back onto that website and buy that product, we get that award. We can turn around to our client and go, hey, look how good we are, even though it started in Google. We've now only got 7 days to show how good we are. If they buy that bike on the 8th day, neither Google or Facebook get rewarded. The client just gets a sale.
Yeah, and actually,
that's right, isn't it?
And I think that so for, and again, this comes down to the type of product that you have, because some people will literally same day Facebook ad buy, impulse buy if it's a like low cost. where that example that you just provided is probably going to have quite a large impact is actually on like my side on the lead gen, where they might come in but then not purchase for ages. And this kind of this already happens because a lot of leads might come in and not convert for like 6 months if it's like super high ticket. But this is going to be even more prevalent now. So that's a case of looking at how are you tracking everything in the back end for those sorts of results.
It would be interesting actually on our reporting with Data Studio, actually, if we could create another bit to show devices and then split those devices on a month by month thing. It'd be interesting for each client to see, okay, based on from October to March, over that 6-month period, seeing if we see a decline in the Apple.
So I tried to do that because, you know, Nick, you and I on that same wavelength, and no, couldn't do it. And that's another point is, you know, is that kind of going to be impacted as well, the API between Google Data Studio and the data in Facebook? I don't know.
FYI, if you're using a Mac and you go onto the App Store or you go onto websites, this doesn't work. It doesn't happen. This is only with iPhones and iPads. So if someone's shopping on their Mac, that information is going back to Facebook, and then they can go onto Google. They can do it, but the minute they open their phone, the tracking stops.
Yeah, and I guess usually 9 times out of 10, the data says that it's going to be a mobile user. However, I have noticed a drop in that since this pandemic, because a lot of more people now are more like desktop is more accessible now because people aren't out and about as much.
I still order a lot off. I ordered this morning off desktop. I prefer desktop to mobile when I'm ordering.
I'm exactly the same.
I don't like the shopping experience on mobile.
No, I like to, I'll kind of like browse around at different options. Then when I've kind of narrowed it down and I've got my kind of top 2 or 3, then it's like I need to be on desktop.
Yeah. Matt, I was on Mango this morning because they just let you know they brought out their sale, 60% off.
I'll check that out after this. Yeah.
I was on my mobile sitting in the lounge and I saw the bomber jacket thing that I wanted. I then went, I want that, I'll buy that. I then closed my phone, went to the kitchen, opened my laptop, went back onto Mango, went to my basket, and then carried on the process.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't like buying off mobile. I just don't really like it. I don't know why. And I think it's because most companies still, even though it's like the biggest thing and 85% of people shop off mobile, they still are shit and they still focus on desktop. And I'm the same. When we're building ClickFunnels pages, I send it to you and go, what do you think? And you go, you haven't even looked at mobile, have you? And I'm like, fuck, I forgot mobile again.
I build funnels. Yeah, I build funnels in mobile view. And then
I'm the opposite. So that's the thing. I'm the opposite.
Because I'm just like, I know that I didn't do that for a client though, actually. And it looked amazing on desktop on my big screen. And
that's
I looked
the problem.
At mobile and thought, oh shit, I've got a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I know. So that's where we are. We've got 5 minutes and then we're off. We're on the team. We're doing this presentation again to the team. So so that's where we are really. Google it, have a look. Facebook is doing loads of free webinars, free discussions. Facebook we're also talking about Facebook is actually pushing out advertising campaigns. So Facebook are doing their best to basically get users who are sitting in a bus stop or down in London watching buses going around, the films are going, and Facebook are spending a fortune on making people go, don't press opt out, press opt in.
Are they doing that? Because I actually was meaning to have a look at what ads they were running.
Yeah,
I thought there's a massive piece of brand awareness on this. Yeah.
Big push. Because also one thing with the last couple of minutes before we go is this isn't just protecting people's it's protecting privacy, but on all of these apps, whether you're on Amazon, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, they are so good, these big platforms now, at tracking properly. So 68% of people on Facebook who buy products who see ads on Facebook want to see ads and 65% buy something they didn't know already existed. We're not talking about big companies, big advertising platforms who go, I'll just throw ads in everyone's faces. These guys don't do that. Same on YouTube. You want to see the videos that they're saying, hey, you might like this. Yes, I bloody would like it. Your experience on these platforms now will start diminishing because you'll see stuff that isn't relevant to you. That's the problem with all of this.
And
they're not thinking about the user experience, are they?
No, not at all. And also a lot of people who are a bit more detached from advertising, a lot of businesses' strategies will be to offer discounts and promotions at bottom of funnel, which essentially means retargeting. So, you know, that will be going out of the window. So all of these discounts and offers that people get, they'll stop seeing them, because a lot of businesses, and I guess businesses will change the way that they do that now because of that potentially. But I think that, you know, I'm just hoping that there is the awareness there for people to just press yes and let businesses carry on growing and not get the businesses off.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, well, let's wrap things up because we've got to get on to the next call. Thanks for listening, guys. What we will be doing is we'll be attaching our 53-page document on this to the bottom. We'll attach that to this podcast. So if you listen to this and you want to download that, download it. Lovely bit of bedtime reading. I read over it again last night, and it still took me about 2.5 hours to properly get in. But it's written with as much layman terms as possible, not to be too confusing. I'm not really wanting to go to those very confusing places where you can get this information from.
No, this will probably end up being a bit of a series on iOS14 as we kind of find out more and the impacts that it has on us as an agency and our clients as we go.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll wrap things up there. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.